Hi, everyone. It's Stephanie with The Patient's Story, back with Rich's story. In the first segment, he just shared about his first symptoms, the diagnosis, the anxiety or scanxiety that he went through with the tests and the wait to figure out what stage the cancer was, all to determine treatment. Now, in part two, we talk about the actual biopsy surgery, his first real surgery ever, and the recovery.
Yeah, this is my first surgery ever in my life, and so there was like a lot of firsts here. So I was kind of freaking out about the actual surgery itself, and I don't know. I guess it's just the unknown. I think it's probably pretty natural for human beings to, be afraid of like being put under, and I don't know. You just get all these, notions about like, will I wake up? Like all these things, even though it was a relatively straightforward surgery, as surgeries go, you still kind of have that in the back of your head. And so the prep was pretty standard, right? Well, obviously, also the other thing that we didn't even talk about is getting cancer during a pandemic. There's actually extra procedures to even like be in the hospital and all these things, and being extra cautious beforehand to make sure wasn't doing anything risky whatsoever to like get COVID prior to my surgery, because time was of the essence. Like every day mattered. So I was already like really cautious, but I was like, I'm not going out anywhere. I'm not talking, like there's no interface within our household the couple of weeks prior to surgery. So that was like step one. And then step two was, yes, the normal procedures to get ready for surgery, what like COVID tests like a few days prior. And then the fasting and the disinfected shower work that you have to, they give you a special like soap to disinfect your body, the 2 showers before you go into surgery. And then the fasting the day of a surgery. I think it's like 12 hours or so. So I was fortunate enough, my surgery was in the morning, so I had an early check-in, and that's always like the easier thing than kind of fasting for 12 hours when you have a surgery later in the evening.
Yeah.
That's about all I can recall at this point.
Yeah, and how long was the surgery? And then of course you were under anesthesia, so waking up, you may not remember all the details, but if you could describe some of that post-surgery recovery as well.
Yes, so if you've spoken to anybody that's gone through surgery, like you're on the table and then you're talking and then you wake up, and that's pretty much what it was. The anesthesiologist was asking me about this and that, and then I remember just waking up outside, and my girlfriend was there. Um, and so just walking into surgery, I think it was really great. Obviously, the people that do surgeries have had a great bedside manner and just like keeping me at ease. I was pretty anxious about it, to be honest. The worst part of the day was just getting your IV set up for the anesthesiologist to do the anesthesia. The rest of it was a cakewalk in terms of just like any pain. There was no pain or anything along those lines. And then I was there for about an hour under observation. My girlfriend was there hanging out with me, and then I didn't have any complications. So then they were ready to move me, but that was like where for the next week I was quite immobile because I had one leg that was in a boot. And I can talk about that, the post surgery recovery.
Yeah, I mean, if you could just sort of the high level notes, if someone's going into a surgery like this, and how long was it again? How long was the surgery?
Yeah, the surgery lasted a ballpark around 2.5, 3 hours.
Okay. So with that kind of a surgery in that duration, any guidance to people in terms of what to expect in the recovery portion?
Even though there's a good portion of my leg that was taken out, and I had a skin graft and a surgery site to access my lymph nodes, it was pain free post surgery. Just a little inconvenient because I had a skin graft kind of close to my hip that we can talk a little bit about that. I think it's a little unique to this particular scenario where they kind of take a portion, obviously like the top portion of your skin, and it's exposed, and they have to like wrap it in plastic. It's almost like saran wrap. And it has to sit there for like a few days before they can take it off so it can disinfect itself and heal without any anything that will infect your area there.
So it's like an open wound.
Yeah, it's a perfectly square open wound.
Wow.
Kind
Um,
of weird.
so how do you like, is something day to day? It's just showers or just washing yourself? Like, how did you handle that?
Yeah, so funny enough, what they put over that skin graft, you can shower, like it's kind of sealed up, so that's not a problem. But I had where my original melanoma site, a pretty sizable, deep um, uh, uh, surgery site that they had to basically kind of stuff with antibiotics. Like it almost looks like a garlic clove that they just kind of put in there, and it's all just like antibiotics, and they needed to kind of leave it there for a number of days. And so I couldn't shower with that, so I kind of had to like half shower my body with that leg out out of the shower, just so I could kind of at least clean my upper body like once or twice before I went back in. I think that was like 4 days later to get the bandages taken off and all that stuff.
Okay. And that's, so that was the surgery, but there were a lot of unanswered questions still in terms of what you'd have to do next, right? So when did you get the answers from the sentinel lymph node biopsy?
Yeah, this was probably like the most tumultuous part of my journey, I think, because now I knew because I had researched and been, obviously talking with my sister for counsel, knowing the importance of this biopsy report, right? If it was negative, my cancer journey was done. I would have been left at stage one, which has that 99%, and there's no treatment required. Like it was just localized. We've exhumed the local area. All be well. I'm done, and just like recover my wounds. If it was positive, then that puts me in at minimum a stage three, which again, kind of going back to those survivability numbers, is a big freak out. So you're kind of building up to this very important moment in your life that could go, two very opposite directions. And so there's a lot of anxiety I felt during that time. And, the surgeon did say that the labs were backed up. I don't know if it was COVID. It probably was COVID related. I don't know if it was, lack of staff or just, a lot of other tests that were backlogged. It was like, yeah, it's going to take a little longer than normal. I can't like give you the exact time of when this is going to get back, which makes it more anxious, of course. And so it was probably a good, week and a half later, when I was called back into the surgeon's office. And through that was the moment where he had a piece of paper. I could just tell it wasn't good news. Like even everybody's wearing masks, I can read body language, and I was like, I could tell he would have a skip and a step if this was a different report. And so that was the moment where, he told me I had a small tumor on the lymph node, and that was going to set me on my next path in the journey.
Wow. And eventually that would be result in a stage 3B diagnosis, right?
Yeah, but at that moment, I only knew it was at least stage three. Like I didn't know if I was in a stage four situation, because if it had traveled to lymph nodes, it could potentially have traveled to almost anywhere else in the body. I know like the brain is a obvious spot for melanoma to travel to, but any number of organs, plus the skin, plus other lymph nodes, it can kind of go anywhere once it's metastasized.
In your head, you keep thinking about the numbers you saw on Google, and it's like, well,
Yeah,
there's 1/3 of my survivability out the window.
at least, if not all of it.
Right. So you're at this very critical place now. What was the sort of what was the conversation at that point? And did you stay with the same physician, or did you have to go to someone else?
Yeah. So, I'll just pick up in that conversation I had with the surgeon who, delivered this biopsy piece of paper that said my lymph node tested positive, and I had a tumor. That moment is just like, I have a tumor, right? Melanoma was just like, it's on the skin. I think this is also, I don't know, at least from a language perspective, just like up the ante even more. I think I feel like my blood pressure even going up now, like hearing tumor, because it wasn't tumor yet. In my mind anyways, it was a thing on my skin. And I think this is maybe something specific for melanoma. where it's like on the surface, it's visible. It's slightly different than maybe most cancers that are internal. And I think this is a threshold. It's like, wow, this is now like an internal tumor versus like something that I could see on my skin. I can't see this thing, which made it even that much more scary. And so, I was kind of left. It was a quick conversation. Um, I don't know if surgeons are the best humans necessarily to deliver that message. It's nothing against surgeons. I don't know. Like, they're not cancer experts. And I don't know. I don't know if anyways, I just think I was just kind of left like in a cold room with another setback in my life. And I just kind of wanted to cry. I was like, because I had hopes that like my cancer journey would be done at this point. Um, but it was tough, right? I was like, okay, wow. Um, and the surgeon left me was like, okay, we're going to refer you to oncology. Never had to deal with oncology before, so it's another first. And that's another threshold. It's like you never, I guess, imagine yourself personally having to go down that path, right? Cancer is around all of us, but um, I don't know. I guess we all probably do it, deal with it the same way. It just becomes so real when it's you, even though if you've had family members that have, battled, there's something different about that news like directed at you. And so
Right.
I don't know. I was freaking out, but I was like, okay, here's the next thing. Like, how fast can I get an appointment? Because days matter for me, right? This thing could have traveled within a matter of weeks. If it's in my lymph nodes, the sooner I can get a scan, the sooner I can understand if like I have bigger problems or not.